And good morning, and welcome back to the next session of LearnEast. I'm Jeff Whipple. I'm a member of the Digital Learning Lead team here with Anglophone West School District, and welcome to LearnEast 2020. And this session titled Working Outside of the Outcomes, Personalized Learning Supported by Community Connections. We want to welcome Natalie Cormier, a good friend of mine, a rock star teacher from Nashwaaksis Middle School. Thank you, Natalie. I've been so lucky to be part of and just on the periphery of some of the great work she's been doing with her kids. And so thank you for taking the time to share your experience and expertise with all of us. Just a reminder to check and make sure your mics are closed. You may leave your video on if you wish. If you have questions during the session, please add them to the meeting text chat window, and our presenter, Natalie, will answer them at the conclusion of the session. Thank you so much again, Natalie, for joining us, and it's all yours, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. And I'll say that I'm just so honored to have been asked to share and to contribute to this year's conference. It's a treat. So without any further ado, I am Natalie Cormier. I am sitting with you in the living room of my homestead in Moncton. And I thought before I got started with specific examples, I would share a little bit about myself so that you know what I'm bringing to the table and how my perspectives and practice came to be what it is. So who am I and why am I presenting today? There I am. That is me. I am Nat to anyone that knows me. I'm not a very formal individual. I wear several different hats. The most prominent of which is that I am a champion for my kids. Love what I do, work really, really hard for my students, and there isn't very much that I won't do in order to ensure their success. So this is, again, it's a treat to be able to share my practice. It is what it is. I take no offense if you disagree. I am honored and pleased to share if you do like what you hear and see today. So I'll share with you my contact information at the end of the session so that we can be in touch if that appeals. Why am I presenting today? Well, relationships are basically my thing. Over the years, I've had several professional roles prior to teaching, and there have been two very constant denominators that I held strong and near and dear. I have found myself constantly working with kids or young people, and I also found myself in capacities of building relationships and networking. So that skill set has really helped me in my teaching role over the last decade, 12 years or so, and I'll get more into that in a moment. The one thing that I thought I knew as a young professional is that I did not want to be a teacher. That was the last thing on my mind. I had teachers in my family, one of whom was my mother. So I had a very close, intimate snapshot and a behind the scenes glance as to what the profession entailed, and it did not appeal. However, with a bit of perspective, maturity, and experience, I came to know better. So my professional life started with the provincial government. I worked with the New Brunswick Advisory Council on Youth, and part of their job was to build and bridge relationships with youth across New Brunswick. So that's me there in front with former Premier Bernard Lord. And part of our mandate was to empower and amplify the voice of New Brunswick's youth. So that right there fed into my passion to have relationships with kids. Moving from there, after about 5 years, I went to work with Dr. Bill Morrison at the Health and Research Education Group at UNB. And again, it was all about building professional networks, building relationships, and a lot of our educational research grants centered around capacity building and amplifying the role that New Brunswick's young people had in their home province and those who came back home too. So again, it's relationships and kids and relationships and kids. And finally, I took a step back and realized that it was undeniable. I gave into my calling and went back to school at 27 to become a teacher. And I haven't looked back since. Now, the reason why I've been invited to speak today is we all know that making education personal is kind of the ticket and how to make it relevant to our learners, but I'm going to talk today about taking it that next step further and crafting personalized opportunities outside of the outcomes to really hook the kids and create some special opportunities for them. The goals and the benefits of personalized learning are immeasurable. I will highlight a few today, though, because I feel that they are worthwhile, and they tie in exceptionally well with global competency development. And that is really where everybody wins, because the kids come out from their experience with you, and they come out of the system far more equipped to handle their personal, their professional, their social, their emotional, with a skill set and a toolbox that just equips them to really smash their opportunities. So some of the global competencies that are supported by personal learning is a challenge of their critical thinking, their problem skills. You're further opening the door to inquiry-based problem solving. They have an increased digital literacy and digital competency. There are opportunities for students to collaborate not just with one another, but community members, which is huge. That helps to connect the dots in a whole variety of situations. We increase self-management skills. We heighten their self-awareness and the development of a positive identity, sense of self. An independent, student-driven, and student-monitored project allows for self-monitoring of progress, perseverance, time management, and the development of self-efficacy, which I think is huge. Students build on their individual innovation, their creativity, what they understand, and how they're able to apply their knowledge to real-world situations. Cross-curricular opportunities, which we know are huge, and their knowledge, which already pre-existing knowledge in a variety of domains, and specific to the example that I'll share with you today, was mathematics, science, and technology, which are braided and beautifully complementary. It gives them an even greater opportunity to take risks in their thinking, their creating. They are able to use opportunities for a wide range of technology to work with others and develop their own innovation, which is, I think, key. They ask effective questions, which assists with their self-monitoring and articulately share their individual ideas and their opinions, not that which has been fed to them with members of their community. And in our particular case, extremely effective bilingual communication. So personalized learning in this context, oh my gosh, opens so many doors and reinforces so many greater goods that in my mind, it's a non-option to ignore. I came across the work of Michael Fullen and Joanne Quinn and Joanne McCackern, and I really, really enjoyed them. So I hope you're enjoying these quotes here too. Criteria for success when it comes to personalized learning, in my opinion, is to focus on your goals, not your obstacles. And I'm going to pause here for a moment because I feel as though we look at opportunities like this and we capitalize them. And what I mean by that is we look at personalization with a capital P, or we look at enrichment with a capital E, and we make them into larger than life and almost insurmountable goals. And we as professionals can easily become discouraged and overwhelmed by that before we even get the ball rolling. So it's important here to focus on your goals and not that which you feel stands in your way, because the hurdles will change, the hurdles will shift, they will morph, they will disappear, they will reappear. But it's important to keep your goals in mind, and that really makes it all a very enjoyable ride and keeps your perspective healthy and something that you can move on. And we'll touch a little bit more on that as we go. So I had no idea how to get what I wanted, but I definitely knew what I wanted. And that was kind of the exciting part of it all. I didn't know what the road looked like. I didn't know what the next steps were, but I knew ultimately that I wanted to provide enrichment opportunities for my students, especially those who had demonstrated talents and intellectual gifts in the domains of mathematics, science, and technology. I'm constantly looking for ways to increase their engagement, heighten and empower their voice as a student, personalize stretch learning opportunities for students. I wanted to improve community partnerships and relationships, because I think it's important that schools aren't just buildings in a community that people drive by every day. I think it's essential that we have ties to our communities and that community members see the potential in the students that roam their yards and play in their parks. I really wanted to offer collaboration between students as well as between students with professionals in relevant fields, which would hopefully grow to become long-term connections and inspiration for future opportunities. And I'm thinking of co-op placements. I was thinking of internships, potential career paths, just exposing kids to professionals who were student-friendly able to connect the dots and open real world opportunities for that which they were learning in class and make those connections for them. So I currently, to root all of this, I keep talking about math, science, and technology. I am a grade 6 French immersion math teacher, and I love every minute of it. And now I'll get to the specifics of the examples that I'd like to share with you today. Last year, I had a really exciting opportunity land in my classroom. I had grade 6 students who are 11 years old, capable of doing math at a grade 9-10 level, which is rare, thrilling, a little intimidating if you allow it to be, but I thought it was awesome, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on these kids. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I knew it was going to be exciting and awesome. So we took the leap of faith, and we figured something out that was pretty special. The challenge that I had in front of me was I had grade 6 students, so children. I started with an interest inventory with them, and I'll explain more what I mean by that in a moment. And I really focused on their stretch learning. So before I knew what I was going to do with them and how I was going to do it, I said, I need lists. I need to know what I don't know. So students were asked to generate 2 lists. The first was a personal interest inventory, just a list of things that they were into, what they loved, where their passions lie, what drove them. And then I asked, because they were self-aware enough and they had the vocabulary to do so, I asked them to identify the areas of math that they really enjoyed. And with those 2 lists in hand, I was able then to determine where to start in order to stretch their learning, and with specific regard to their individual zones of proximal development, and where their passions and interests lie, so that I could keep them engaged, keep them interested, and really show them that they can take their learning and translate it to their personal interests and their lives, and their learning would be as authentic as possible. So with those lists in hand, I took the math and tried my best to come up with a project to stretch their knowledge and understanding of surface area, volume, geometry, trigonometry, measurements, angles, while simultaneously providing them with an opportunity to develop their technical skills and build on their own personal competencies. So again, we're touching on that global competency component while stretching their academic learning as best as possible. This is the challenge that I laid out to the kids after taking everything into consideration. I challenged them to design a house to scale on graph paper to satisfy specific requirements. And I was a little generous with the specs just because I wanted to give the kids flexibility in design. So I tasked them with a 3-story house at 4,700 square feet. It was large. 5 bedrooms, one of which being the master, 4 bathrooms, one of which being a partial, a garage, which required additional square footage, specific recreational areas, an above ground pool with specific volume that needed to be satisfied, and a roof that had a specific predetermined slope. Again, these are 11-year-olds. They started to drool at this list. They were excited. They thought this was great. And the initial plan was for them to come up with their ideas and their plans. They had their choice of materials, and they were then going to build their own house out of whatever. I didn't care, as long as it made sense to them and it fit their design. They had complete carte blanche. They just needed to give me a list of what they needed and I would make it happen. So the kids were really excited about that. They set off, and when they satisfied grade 6 curricular outcomes, they were able to pull this out and work on it at their own pace and in their own space. And it was a really nice challenge for them to have at the ready. Taking things to the next level is where this kind of really got cool. So I know enough to know that I don't know everything. And I think Einstein nailed it when he says, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know where to look when I need something. So it all started with a conversation. I can't boil it down to anything any simpler than that. I was excited about this project. The kids were excited about this project, and I just wanted to talk to people about it. I said, oh my gosh, have you heard what I'm doing? I have the best kids. It's so cool. And that's really how it got started. So starting with the conversation, I reached out, and Jeff mentioned that we are not just good friends, but we are also colleagues. I believe my first conversation was with him. So I was looking for direction and support from these 4 individuals. I had Beth Christie, subject coordinator for enrichment. I had Mr. Derek Grant, numeracy coordinator, Mr. Matt McGuire, subject coordinator for tech, and Mr. Jeff Whiffle, apologies, tech lead. And between the 5 of us, we ping-ponged ideas and just built, and things snowballed in such an exciting direction. And it was really over the course of one hour-long conversation that everything just started to bubble and branch and become something that I never ever dreamt would take shape. And I'll get into the details here shortly. From our meeting of the minds, so that's my really excited face in case you're wondering. Appropriate technology was identified, so we chatted about hardware and software that would best support the kids and what they were doing. A proposal was written and approved, and we secured funding. Technology was secured, and the funding was able to afford the kids each a laptop. So they each had their own device to use, and we debated between different types of devices, but we settled on laptops as the best option for them. So they have cases and laptops that'll follow them. And a collaborative plan took shape to challenge and connect students with experts in a variety of technical and technological fields from the community. So this wasn't just going to be an in-house operation between teachers and students. We started to identify key community members that would really help the kids take things next level. I'm super excited. So this is one of my little sweeties working away on his pencil and paper project that I had initially designed for him. And from our collaborative conversation, the kids had laptops that were equipped with architectural software that they could then take their pencil and paper design, load it into their software with the ultimate goal of 3D printing their individual homes. And the software that we had chosen, well, actually the kids chose it. We offered them a selection and they decided what they wanted, would export very, very nicely to the 3D printers that we had in-house. So the kids took the reins there, and from their 3D print design, we also were going to lean on flexible tech to have lights, automatic garage door openers, floodlights in their pools, whatever they wanted. We were gonna see and challenge the limits of their creativity to see what they could come up with. Consulting with the professionals. Oh, this is where it got really, really neat. And I got to sit back and just watch amazing things unfold in front of me. We had John LaRue, who is a very well-known and well-celebrated architect in the city of Fredericton, sit down with our students as they were grappling with their house designs. They sat down together multiple times. He would review their designs. He would celebrate their great ideas. He would make suggestions. They were armed, the kids were armed with questions. They received expert revisions on how to maximize their design elements. Did you consider this? I see a bit of a challenge there. You may run into some issues here. The conversations were incredible to witness, and I just provided coffee for John and pencils and erasers for the kids and just watched it all happen. Dr. LaRue was incredibly flexible. He was willing to come into the school. He came in several times. It didn't hurt that it was his former stomping ground, so he was happy to come back and check out the school and see how things had evolved since his presence. But it was really quite exceptional to watch them all work together, and the energy in the room is something that I still have a hard time putting a word to. Other than magical, I think, is the best word that I've been able to describe it so far. Unfortunately, this is the point in the project where COVID got in the way and shut everything down. So I will continue to let you know what the plans were. However, everything is still on hold as it lies right now, and I'm happy to pick this back up and kickstart it when school gets back rolling again. However, so things are on pause as of this moment forward, but we were also invited to go and consult with and work with a man named John Wagner, who's the lead 3D developer for the Army Support Center at CFB Gagetown. The kids and I were invited to privately tour the 3D printing section at CFB Gagetown with John Wagner. There, the kids would have benefited from his expertise and his guidance as they planned to print their individual house designs. They were also going to be exposed to world-class print technology and professionals in highly dynamic and really exciting technological fields. So I would really like to see this still happen, and I am going to push to continue this project and get those kids in that space, provided COVID regulations will allow. We also had Ben West, on board. He's a computer programmer and a coding expert. Once the kids had their houses printed and everything was ready to go, when they were ready to incorporate their tech, whatever that looked like, Ben was at the ready, as he's a professional programmer and a coding expert. So if the kids had any questions about how to write code, what they could do, how they could do it, he was more than happy to facilitate and help train them in that respect. Now, I've been telling you a lot about what's been going on my end, but I also reached out to my kids and asked for a little bit of feedback from them, because you can take my word for it, but I think it's even better if you hear it from them. So being summer, it was difficult to get all of them to chime in, but I did get one of my little nuggets on board, and he was able to send me some of his feedback. So I threw out 4 specific questions for his consideration, and I think you'll agree that he nailed it. So bear with me here. I'm just going to tee up my audio.
Question 1. What did you like or appreciate about Madame Cormier's house project? I get to look forward to something challenging every day. I've also got to work with other kids that are my age and are intelligent like me. I also got to learn how to be precise in numbers and how that helps me in design.
So I'm intelligent. I get to work with my friends. Oh, it's just amazing. Question 2.
Question 2. How did Madame Cormier take your individual interests and build them into what you were doing? I've always loved art, and the house project helped me flow my creativity into one of my favorite subjects, math.
Question 3.
Question 3. Which elements or parts of the project do you think Madame Cormier included, specifically for you? Madame Cormier has always known that I am an artist, and I feel like Madame Cormier added the creativity in architecture specifically for me.
And last but certainly not least.
Question 4. What do you wish all of your teachers knew regarding individualized planning for students? When I was in elementary school, I've often been bored with some subjects, and even when the class worked on something new, somehow I knew it already. It felt like I've never really had a challenge in learning. Madame Cormier sees others' potentials and helps them grow in their own way. Madame Cormier's house project made me look forward to math in school every day. That's the first time I've ever really had that feeling.
I don't know that there's much more to say. I think he nailed it. So I will wrap things up with the following bullet points. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly what you're doing. You just have to have a willingness to seek out your resources, as they are plentiful, and have a conversation or two. It's the unsiloed approach to education. It's the sharing and the willingness to be vulnerable and open up your planning book somewhat. Take the leap of faith and know that people will jump on board to support you. They will throw their resources at you, and all you need to do is pick it up and say thank you and run with it. You will not get if you do not ask. And flexibility and open-mindedness are key. Like I said, I'd never imagined that my little house project would have taken on this type of dynamic evolution, but it did, and I'm so glad that it did, because my kids were so excited to work on it, and it just sparked a fire in all of the professionals that had a key to play. I'm going to continue to look for opportunities to do this year and year and year upon year. So with that being said, I thank you all so much for your time today. I hope that you're enjoying the last week of official vacation. My contact info is there on the screen. If you want to reach out for any reason, I welcome that. And Mr. Whipple, I defer to you and the questions or comments that may be coming your way.
Thank you so much, Nat. That was great, and certainly an exciting project. I remember watching those kids and meeting with those kids, and they were really amazing group. We do have a question here from Peter. He says, what's the name? He says, thank you so much, by the way. What's the name of the architectural software that you used? And what is the 3D printing section at CFB Gagetown? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, I was afraid someone was going to ask me that. It's been a while since we've used it. Thank you, Peter, for your question. Jeff, I might ask for your help here because you helped me to identify a couple, and the kids really loved one. I don't have the name of it at the tip of my tongue. Do you happen to remember?
I can't remember which one they chose.
Let me. I actually tried to dig back and find it, but where the kids chose it. Yeah. I have all of the information written down and it's in my desk. So I apologize. I can't answer that one right now, Peter, but I will. If you would check me an email, Peter, I'd be happy to get that to you.
Yeah, Natalie's email is on the screen, natalie.cormier2. There's a number 2 in there because there are more than one. Can't believe there's more than one at ned.nb.ca. So one of the things that really struck me, Nat, was your willingness to bother people. So many teachers don't want to reach out to the community because, well, those guys, they got businesses to run. They've got, they're really busy people, professionals. Mm-hmm. What was the reaction you got from those that you reached out to?
Oh my goodness, there was zero hesitation or reservation. Everyone was just thrilled and honored to have been asked to come in and work with the kids. Anytime that I have reached out to the community, I have had an overwhelmingly positive response. No one seems put out. No one has ever said that they're too busy. No one has ever commented that it doesn't fit in with their personal scope or their professional responsibilities. In fact, several employers encourage their employees to take on volunteer capacities, and getting into schools and sharing technical expertise falls well within that. There are other professional scopes that have requirements of this nature to fulfill. So the reach out is actually a huge facilitation on their end to satisfy some of their professional information sharing responsibilities. So I've never, ever had a negative reaction or a negative response. It's been nothing but positive, and overwhelmingly so.
So this was a really interesting group of 3 kids. We would identify them as possibly gifted, or would use other terms to describe them. So these kids were pretty motivated and pretty smart, if you can handle that term. Could you do this with any student?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I don't mean to say that this is an exception and that no one else out there is doing this. I feel that a lot of educators personalize their instruction on a daily basis. And I want to recognize that, because that is huge and it's valuable. And by having a guest speaker come into your classroom, I realize that COVID might make that difficult this coming year. Personalizing, again, you don't have to have the capital P on personalization when it comes to education. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to feel massive. Making it relevant, pulling in people where the opportunity presents itself. You can do this for any and every kid. They don't have to be grade 6 students working at grade 10 level. They can be grade 6 students exactly at the grade 6 level, as long as you are willing, again, to share what you're doing and have those conversations and bring people in when the timing and the opportunity is right. Oh my gosh, again, things will just take on a life of their own and make your outcomes flourish.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time today to share of your expertise. It's as I said, I've always enjoyed watching you and your kids, and you said earlier that you are passionate about your kids, and I can certainly attest to that. There's nobody that I've had the pleasure to work with that has any more passion than you do.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that very much. It was my pleasure.
Cool. So that concludes this morning's session on personalized learning. On behalf of LearnEast and our participants here today, I want to thank you for taking the time to share, Natalie. A reminder to everyone to please click on the link in the chat and fill out the form to be eligible to win one of several door prizes that will be awarded at this afternoon's closing session. And a reminder to join us this afternoon for sessions as well, but also at 3:45 to hear from our MBTA President, Rick Cumming. And so that's all for today. Thank you very much, folks, for joining. We'll be around here for a couple of minutes. If you do have some questions, you can keep them coming. If not, we will see you this afternoon.